1, 2, 3. Hello.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We have on our second episode, we have Kjetil.
Mm-hmm.
I fuck that name up all the time. It's a very common name here in Norway.
It is though. But the KJ sound is weird in English.
It's a
Yeah. It's like an SH.
Okay. So for all the foreign assholes that don't know how to say your name, like myself, how do you formally pronounce it?
Well, I say Kjetil Melkevik.
Kjetil.
Kjetil.
Okay.
And I studied in Australia.
Oh, okay.
In Perth. And one day to read the who's there with the teachers, they're like Kjetil with a KJ. Yeah. But it's not that. I don't mind. I understand why people would mispronounce it in English.
So because I know a lot of and Asian people do this as well. Their name may be like, Ching Pong or whatever, and that sounded super racist. But they'll have like an American name or an English name. They'll call themselves Julie.
Yeah.
Do Norwegians do that?
I don't think so. Not that I'm familiar with, but I do know what you mean. Like, is it Jerry or Jack or
exactly. Something that sounds similar.
Yeah.
I remember. I had a friend actually. I was in Hawaii for 12 years, and I had a group of like Scandinavian friends, and I remember one of the girls' name being like, what was it? It was like Tina or like but people like mispronounce it all the time.
Yeah.
So she just like was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna create like an American name and just go with that. It sounded somewhat similar, but it wasn't,
Yeah, I think that especially if you're gonna live in a country for an uncertain amount of time, it's I think it would be great to kind of get a name that people would pronounce.
Because it gets kind of annoying.
Yeah. And in a professional setting, if you're gonna get somewhat of a respect, if people can't even pronounce your name, it's a problem right off the bat.
Yeah. No, I think her name was Line.
Yep.
Right?
Line.
They were calling her Line, so she got annoyed, but
I'm doing a line now that.
Yeah. So no, I like the name Kjetil. I was like, because we have 2 sons, and obviously at some point we're like, okay, we gotta name these bastards, and so we're like, do we give them American names, English names? I was like, let's give them a really fucking Viking Norwegian name, we went with Levi and Logan, probably not the most Norwegian.
Wow. Levi
and Logan.
Okay, well, Levi and Logan. Is that a Norwegian name?
No, it's American.
It's American, yeah.
So we kind of, my plan failed, and we ended up going with American names.
Yeah.
No, I love your name. So for those that don't know you, no, I don't really know you either, because I went to one of your stand-up shows, a month and a half ago?
Yeah, that could be. Was that on Checkpoint?
Yeah.
English?
Yep. The English one.
Yep.
I dragged a friend of mine to it, I mean, I could have gone by myself, but the guy thinks he's funny. I hope he's listening to this because he's really not funny. Yeah, he's like the dad joke king.
Yeah.
But fuck, we had a really good time. Coming from America, like there's a lot of like all these Netflix shows and all these big comedians, So to be honest with you, like I went in there with like no expectations, because we are in, a relatively small part of the world. But dude, the talent, including yourself.
Thank you.
I was really surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying this because you're sitting in front of me. But I was really surprised and really impressed.
Yeah, because for the last couple of 5, 6, 7 years, I feel Norwegian stand-up is finally getting the respect it deserves. Yeah. Because there's so many great comedians in Norway that a lot of people haven't heard of. Yeah. And the audience, I feel, have the same view on Norwegian stand-up. Well, for 5 years ago, and the same view that I had on Norwegian films. It's like American films are better. American stand-up is better.
Right.
But now it's a growing interest in that. Okay, yeah, they can do. We haven't heard of any of them, but like you say, we exceed the expectation, because the expectation is like, let's just see what this is. Yeah.
I mean, when you're starting up, I mean, you can't go any further down. So
you
have a lot of room for improvement there.
Yeah.
But is the comedy scene? I mean, I'm sure it's bigger in Oslo, right?
Yep.
But is it big in Norway? Like, is it, like you said, is it up and coming?
Yes, it is. Like the earliest clubs about 20 and 30 years ago. Like Stand Up Bergen is next year celebrating 20th.
20 years?
Yes.
Wow.
And the oldest club, stand-up club in Oslo, is just celebrated 30 this year. Stavanger, it's about started in 2012, so like 12 years. So, now there are stand-up in those cities, and in Trondheim, and in Kristiansand, and in Arendal, and in Tromsø, Bodø. Yeah. So it's not all the way nationwide, but it's all the major cities has a stand-up. Yeah.
Is there a place here in Stavanger that's like just only for comedy? Because I know the place that we that I saw you, it was
Yep.
more like a bar.
Yes.
But is there like a comedy club here?
No. So
there isn't.
Oslo is the only one who has that. You have Latter and you have Nye Scene. Those are owned by the people who. It's in America. It's as far as I know, at least, it's more common than you have a club owner. That does stand like that has the owners are creating the events. Here we have the stand-up clubs, but we go to a venue that has nothing to do with stand-up, like Checkpoint or Folken.
Right.
So it's kind of that the stand-up club is kind of just using a venue instead of the venue itself being the stand-up club.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you guys are very active then in terms of like trying to find venues, booking, promoting.
Yes. So in Sandnes we do use Melkebaren for the most part. And Bryne, we have Mellonbells, and in Stavanger it's mostly Folken and Checkpoint. And there's a place called Easy Pub in Egersund. So we just have different venues in different.
So that's kind of been like you guys reached out. They were like, "Hey, we're game. Come on in." And now it's kind of like more of a routine thing that you guys have established with the venue.
Yeah.
It would be great. I mean, it works. I mean, the stage was great. The atmosphere was great. It would be fantastic to have like a designated comedy club.
It would be the best because then we also get the income on the beer sales and everything and all of it. But it's just it's too much of a risk, I think. It's not in my plans for the next 5 years at least to try or 10 years to try and then I have to buy a venue, everything that comes with that, estate tax and all the I don't know, all a lot of more complicated things, hire bartenders, and it's just a whole business then.
It's one thing being a comedian,
a
great comedian, but then it's another thing trying to run a business.
Yes,
you know? So I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that'd be great. I mean every major town in the U.S. has a comedy club.
Yep.
So you know a lot of American comics, I feel like they tend to like move around and like travel, be on the road.
Yep.
But I guess you can do that because when I came to your show, there was a guy who'd been doing comedy for over 20 years, based out of Oslo.
Yeah.
So do you also travel?
Yeah, I travel a lot. Yeah. I travel like every year we're in all the different fylkene. What would that be in English? We're all in every county in Norway. Like I've been to about, if you take all the cities and the rural areas, I've been to about 100 places. Yeah.
100 different venues.
100, no, more venues than that. 100 different like areas. If you take Checkpoint and Folken, that's like one just in Stavanger.
Holy shit.
So yeah, but I've been doing this now. I'm celebrating next year, 2025, 10 years.
Fuck me, really? Wow.
So I'm putting up 7 shows for the occasion of celebrating the 10 years. Yeah. So I started April 29th, 2015. Yeah.
That's a great segue.
Yeah.
If we could back up for a second, I always like to find out like where Kjetil came from.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so just kind of explain for myself more or less, like I'm very curious, like, where you were brought up, where you were born, what your upbringing was like, how you got into comedy. I mean, did you like just stumble upon it? Did you always want to be a comic?
Yeah. Born and raised Hundvåg, outside of Stavanger.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember seeing stand-up as a kid. I saw a lot of Jerry Seinfeld, not just the sitcom, but also the stand-up. And I saw, obviously, remember Pablo and Francisco? Mm-hmm. A lot of American stand-up. Yeah, and just saw George Carlin. But the first thing I ever saw was Raw with Eddie Murphy.
Oh, hey, he's
yeah. Yeah. And I just fell in love with it. Then when I was a kid, I would see my bigger brothers. I have one brother that's 5 years older and one that's 9 years older. And I just saw them just being mesmerized by this comedian. I'm not sure if I understood all of it.
Now, how old were you when you were watching these?
I must have been like 8 or 9.
8 or 9.
Yeah.
At 8 years old.
Yeah.
As a boy living in Norway.
Yeah.
You've never been to the U.S., I would assume.
Yeah.
Did you understand like some of the nuances and the jokes?
No, I didn't understand the nuances.
Yeah, you still enjoyed it.
Yeah, but but it's just let's take for instance Eddie Murphy Raw. He's so animated in his performance, and I just saw how everybody else laughed. And I remember when I was 8, 9, 10, having seen a lot of movies and just the culture. You can speak, you understand somewhat English, but not nuances and politics and stuff like that. But anyway, I was just I think I noticed how just one guy on the screen, just having this control, not just in the venue of the room, but also through the TV screen. I just fell in love with it, and but I thought of stand-up like there's no education for it, right? There's no formal, right? So it's like it's like becoming an astronaut. Like there's no how do you do it? So it was never really a reality, never a possibility. And then I moved to Bergen to study. And there was one guy in my class there who told me he did stand up. It's like, what are you do? What? How are you doing stand up? And he was in Stand Up Bergen, the comedy club there. And I asked him like, how do you do that? And he just told me, just send him an email.
So you wanted to get involved like right away?
Yeah.
Really?
At this time, at this point, I'm 27. I'm like, this little 20 years ago.
So you're just kind of waiting for this moment,
kind of,
for someone to be like, yeah, here's how you
do it. Yeah, and he gave me an email address, and I sent him the email. That this was in 2014, and no response. So I thought, all right, it's not that easy, right? And then I just 1 year later, I was like, no, okay, I'm gonna send them a new email, and then they responded. So it's just a fluke that they maybe didn't. Yeah, we just missed it. And then I got my debut in April 2015, and obviously nervous as hell. I remember my first performance. I was because I haven't never been on stage before. So I remember the light being so strong, and I couldn't see the audience. I remember I was not used to hearing myself like in the speakers. Like I was not a public presenter or a public performer.
So you never done like public speaking, acting, theater?
No.
None of that. So that was your first time on stage?
Yes, and I was so cautious when I was in the venue there, because I should have just I was there like an hour before any audience member. So I should have just gone on stage just to kind of tap the microphone or just feel the light and feel the room, but I didn't. So the first time I was on stage was when I was performing in front of like it was about 100 people there.
Oh my God.
And I give myself like a 5 out of 10, because I remember at one point I got angry with the audience. No, not fully angry with them, but I was much more angry in my head that I was projecting. But because they were kind of heckling, and I was like, I'm trying to do something for the first time, and you're kind of disturbing everything. But I remember telling myself that if I get 10, 20, or 30 more shots at this, I will make a better impression. Yeah.
So you were at that point, you gave yourself a 5 out of 10 for the night. You had some hecklers that kind of threw you off a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, were you, if we just back up half a step, were you joke writing the whole time, or did you say, okay, now I got like a spot, now I need to write some jokes?
I kind of both. I'd always interested in that, and I kind of knew about maybe 2 months ahead of time that April 29th is the day. So but that was writing jokes, but I wasn't really writing jokes before that. I was just thinking jokes. And that's a lot of part of the writing process for many comedians. A lot of people don't literally write the
down,
jokes. They just write them in their head, and that's called writing in and of itself. A lot of people, when they first start out, it's maybe like in year 2 they actually kind of write them out, or year 1, because the jokes are often real experiences, which they just have in their head anyway. So they haven't actually written them out. They just tell them how you would tell a story about something happening last vacation, right?
Storytelling.
Wow. But when you're gonna start to write a bigger set, maybe a 15-20 minute set, or especially if you're trying to write a whole full hour, then you have to structure it. You have to actually write it out. But then it kind of, when you put it pen to paper, it kind of loses some of its some of its energy.
So do most comics like? You're saying that most comics, when they start off, they don't start off writing.
No.
So they have like a couple things that happen, and they just kind of, do they go up there and just kind of, I mean, not wing it, but they just kind of like, hey, let's see what happens.
Yeah. So they have the story, they know what you're going to say. And a lot of people, they have this set list. So they have like a 1-word like a bullet point list. But most of them, they haven't that's just for them to remember it on stage.
Yeah. So they don't
But if you ask them, like, have you written this whole thing out? Says, no, I just have it. Yeah.
So it's like they have a story in mind, or they have 3 or 4, and then they have like a one-worder that's like, oh, okay, now I know what to talk about.
Yes,
like the airport toilet experience, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
And then when you see a performer 5 times, it might be a somewhat different, because they also pick up what the audience laugh at, what doesn't work.
They're tweaking.
Yeah, they're tweaking, but they don't go home and tweak it in writing. They just remember, because when you get a big laugh of something, you'll remember it, because you get the dopamine rush. You get the
oh fuck, that works.
Yeah. And then can just the jokes has to survive. If they don't work 3 or 4 times in a row, dead. So it's kind of an evolutionary process.
It's a trial and error.
Yeah.
But could it be that like one joke kills? Like let's say you're performing in Oslo, and then you say the same joke, the same the same kind of cadence, everything, you nail it, and then like in another area, it's just dead.
Yes, that can happen.
That's gotta be really fuck. So it's like trial and error, but also like, hey, good luck.
Yes, it is. It is, because stand-up, it's so live, obviously. So it's so. But what I do, if it works really good at one place and maybe a second place, but then really bombs at the third place, I take the third place as a fluke, that was not that was just unlucky.
Okay.
So but if it keeps bombing, you have to figure out why. Because it's mostly delivery.
Do you can it? Like, let's say it fucking rips and then it does okay and then bomb. Do you at that point go, okay, let's toss this and try to create something new? Or are you like refining?
Could try to refine it. A lot of times you can just can it, but I put it in. I have a Google document with a lot of like loose threads and ideas and words. And if something doesn't quite work, I'll put it in the bank. But it's easy to toss it. Yeah, to just get on to the next thing. Unless I can really see something there. It's just it's a joke by joke decision. Yeah.
So man, so your brain must, like, even when you're walking down the street, your brain must be going all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're thinking like, oh, look at that fucking guy over there. Like, that could be that you can spin that into a joke.
Yeah.
Wow.
That something, and just sitting on the bus and the interaction between 2 other people could be something, or and also I think a lot about not what happened, but what if that happened. So a lot of times I can see a guy maybe on the slippery ice outside on the street. He doesn't fall. But no, in my joke, he falls. Yeah.
So you have to have quite an imagination too.
I think so, yeah. But I think it's a lot. All the comedians I know, it's not something they work on. It's just who they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're always hungry for the next joke, and they're always hungry to perform that. So they want it. It's a show and tell. It's a huge attention-seeking profession. So if you come up with something, the payoff is when you can perform it and everybody laughs. And it's like, whoa, that was a great joke. And it's like, that's the hunger.
It must be like, when something funny happens at work or at school or something, and you can't like wait to go home and tell your like girlfriend or boyfriend about it. It must be a little bit like that, but obviously with a lot more refinement.
Yes, and but because a lot of stand-up, you obviously you're doing it for the audience, but you're doing it for yourself, for your self-improvement, for your what you care about. But you also do it maybe for the other comedians, because that's the people you're going to hear from after the show.
Oh yeah,
right. So it's kind of So it's when you do stand-up, this is it's not like you're doing stand-up in front of a lot of people, really, because you're not talking to them. You're doing a monologue. It's not a dialogue.
Yeah.
So you're doing a monologue out in space. They just happen to be there because they want to pay a ticket price to see you talk. But it's a weird relationship, because it's kind of not. I know comedians that doesn't like talk to people, but they can talk in front of people because they're not talking to them. They're not having. They're hitting a tennis ball to a wall. They don't want to play a tennis player. Yeah.
So it takes like a special personality to do this. Like, could someone? My always question is like, could someone who is like a huge fan of the comedy, but maybe not like, I compare this to like singing, right? Because I think that if you're completely tone deaf, like forget about it, But if you're like, if you could put together some chords, you can get a coach and be like decent, But But then there are like the Whitney Houstons and like the Mariah Careys of the world, that just, even if they didn't want to, like they're just born to sing.
Mm.
Is comedy a little bit like that, where there's comedians that are like Eddie Murphy, like Cat Williams for me, like, these comedians are just like on fire all the time. Dave Chappelle. And then are there comedians that also like maybe not born with the talent, but like can work at it,
Yeah.
There's a full spectrum, I
Yes,
assume?
yes. It's kind of the same. It's very analogous to that because you have the ones that just go on stage, they start doing stand up, and they're great pretty much off the bat.
Right up.
They just need because they've been comedians all their lives at the party, at the back of the classroom, at the back of the bus. They've been comedians all their lives. They just now have a stage to do it on. What it usually happens with those people is that it takes about a year or two for them to get familiarized with the dynamics of being on a stage, which they're not used to. But the second they kind of find out about that and figure that out, they skyrocket.
The performance aspect.
Yes, yeah. But then you have what I sometimes say is that you can always sharpen a pencil, but you kind of have to be a pencil. There's what I mean about that is that, like you say, there's some singers that they're so tone deaf that there's nothing to sharpen. They're not the correct tool. But most of the people who start are that you can definitely sharpen a pencil. You can definitely make it better. Yeah.
Now, if I'm asking quite frankly, you've been doing this for a long time. Dude, I thought the reason I think I watch a lot of stand-up comedy, like on Netflix and everything. I'm a huge fan. So is my wife. And I think the level of like comfort on stage, and of course, like this obviously makes sense, like that it comes with time, or if you're just like a natural at it. But your level of comfort on stage made like put my guard down and was like, I'm
Yes.
ready to like just get entertained,
Yeah.
Whereas if someone comes up and you can tell they're nervous, it's like, oh man, you're just like kind of waiting for them to, you don't like wish that they bomb, but you're like, oh, this is coming.
Yeah. What I think that because as an audience member, people have empathy. People in the audience, they look on stage. I think a lot of people think I would want to do that, but no, I'm not gonna do it because of the frightening aspect of bombing and failing and being embarrassed, right?
Yeah.
So if you kind of sense or sniff out that this next comic, he's gonna bomb and it's gonna be horrible, your guard is up because this is gonna be bad because the audience member wants the comic to succeed. I have a stand-up course as well. Through Stand Up Stavanger, we have 2 courses a year, and I tell people there that doing stand-up, obviously they want to do stand-up, that's why they're at the course, but it's not frightening if you think about it in this term is that the audience member, they want you to stick the landing. They want to give you 10 out of 10. So they're on your team. That's why I got angry my first time. Because when they heckled me, I felt like, okay, this is a war. This is a fight between us. You're like, you don't want me to succeed. This is my dream. This is my first shot now to try to do what I really want to do. And you're kind of deliberately fucking it up, right? Yeah. So I kind of got angry with them. Yeah. But that's why I thought that's what their intention was. They're just out having a drink and watching a comedy show. They don't care about my emotional investment in this.
It's another Friday night for them.
Yes, right. But I've just learned that they want you to succeed, and like you say, when there's a comic that seems uncertain and does not have the same comfort level, the audience is kind of, and then it's not going to produce laughter. So the delivery and comfort and confidence, it's so important.
Yeah. I don't know if you watch Kill Tony on YouTube.
Sometimes I should have watched it more.
I mean, when my wife and I just want a good laugh, it's like a guaranteed thing because you have comics that kill, like the regulars, and then you have basically people who have just like this is their first time on stage.
Yep.
So that's also fun.
Yeah.
So it's a good mixture of that, but
that's because you love comedy. People who really enjoy the process of comedy and love stand-up, they would like to go to our, like on Wednesdays we have this open mic nights where we have some people debuting, right? And people who like comedy, they don't mind if a comic doesn't do that well because awesome, let's see him in a half a year or something, right? Yeah. When other people, they just want to pay a ticket price to see something good on a when they're going out. They don't want to see somebody trembling and not performing well, or they don't care about the journey of a comedian per se. Yeah.
It's always super cringeworthy when I like, especially on that show, because the host Tony always asks, "How long have you been doing comedy?"
Yeah.
It ranges from like, "Hey, this is my first time on stage," to like, "I've been doing this for 15 years." It's always so cringeworthy when they bomb. Like, they're uncomfortably bomb. You know, like it's a no-brainer. People are booing, and then they say like, "I've been doing this 10 years."
Yeah. Wow.
It's like, what have you been doing in 10 years?
Yes.
You know.
Yes. There's those exist. Yeah.
You got to give them props for resilience, right?
Yes.
Never giving up.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
maybe it's time to hang up the cleats of getting booed on a stage
But
like that.
but I think people who stay in the game for 10 and 15 years and not really figuring it out, because I think they hear the stories of the greats. I've been doing it for it took me 10 years to break. Yeah, in America, in Los Angeles, where there are much more people and much more It's in Norway. If you don't figure out in 15 years, it's a bigger problem than if you don't figure out in 15 years in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Now, when you say figure it out? Let's say you've been at this for 7, 8 years. You've had success. What for you, or I mean, I guess you may be able to speak for other comics because you're in that community. Like, what is it that you would consider I've made it?
Oh, it is an open question in some sense, because depends on how you look on success. Is the point of being known, or is the point of being a good comic? Because there are a lot of good comics that hasn't really, they're not just unlucky in who they meet and network with and what opportunities they get, and other way around. People get great opportunities that maybe somebody else should have gotten. But figuring out and made it, it's stand-up. It's so much about identity. So when you figure out who you want to be on stage, that takes a long time. And then the audience can see like a real person behind the performance. Then you're kind of figuring it out. And if people like your persona, then it's just going to grow automatically. Yeah.
Do you feel like where do you feel like you're at in this whole like comedy maturity process? Where do you feel like?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Now I'm next year 10 years. Still a way to go, but I've also come far. So it's hard to kind of pinpoint where I'm at, because that kind of defines that there's a start and an end to something. There's not really an end, because you can always yeah. So, but I know what you mean, but it's just hard to kind of define. Yeah.
Would you like to see yourself doing like more, maybe being on a TV show or doing some movies, some some voiceover stuff? Do you have any other interests other than just like performing at venues, or is that your thing? Do you enjoy that?
Yeah, that's what I enjoy the most. But of course, if there was a sitcom or a series or some sort, if they wanted me, I'll meet up. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I'm not that. I think most of us who do stand up would do that. It takes balls to be that pure. So no, I only do stand up. Of course, it's a way to get known, and it's a way to kind of expand yourself. I don't look down on any comedians that does something outside of comic. Well, of course, yeah.
Well, if there's any producers out there listening right now in Norway or in Scandinavia or in Europe or anywhere, I guess, dude, Kjetil is a fucking killer. If you have a sitcom, fucking cast this guy. At least give him like a
line.
A line or an interview, right? No, I like to. I think. So speaking of that, does like, if you're like a fucking amazing comic, like stand-up comic, does it automatically like translate to in front of the camera type stuff? Like if you're doing sitcoms or movies, or do some people they're not able to transition well?
I think most people, if you're killing it as a stand-up, it would translate. I think that's what the whole 80s, 70s, and 80s and 90s was in America with Johnny Carson and the Tonight Show, Jay Leno interviewing prosperous up-and-coming comics, and if they killed it on national television, there was here's a sitcom deal. You heard about that all the time with obviously Jerry Seinfeld and Kevin James with King of Queens, and Everybody Loves Raymond. Raymond was on the Late Show with David Letterman, and just signed him for a kind of a family. He had this family-oriented material, and let's make a sitcom out of that. So I think comedians and sitcoms go well together. I think. Yeah.
Because it's crazy to think, and again, like I'm a huge fan of comedy and comics. If you look at a lot of like, I guess more so in America, maybe not here, but if you look at the late night show guys, movie stars, they all have. I mean, a lot of them have stand-up backgrounds.
Yeah.
Look at Eddie Murphy,
Yes.
Jay Leno, who has a one of the biggest late night shows. He started off doing comedy. I don't know if you know Bob Saget from
Bob Saget,
dude.
Yeah.
He was like the dad in Full House, and if you listen to his stand-up, you're like, okay, is this the same person?
Yeah. It's savage.
Yeah, he's a savage. So a lot of people have that stand-up comedy translates.
Tom Hanks.
Did Tom Hanks?
Yes,
really.
And who was that? The Batman in 1992 with Danny DeVito as the Penguin. Michael Keaton.
Okay.
He did stand up.
What about Danny DeVito?
Maybe a lot of people, and also this one, Al Pacino.
Al Pacino.
Yes.
In the comic?
Yeah.
Really?
So he started. I think a lot of because this was before The Godfather, so pre 72. It's a way to kind of just get exposure to just try and speak in front of people.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's just an open mic. So Al Pacino, he didn't do stand up, but he has done it.
Wow, I didn't know that. Al Pacino.
Yeah. Because I feel like Norway sometimes is about 30, 40 years behind America in a lot of ways, but especially in the cultural phenomenons and everything. So I think in like 30 years, we will also have our big actors and presenters on TV having done stand-up. It's just that stand-up is so new in Norway that our current presenters and actors, there's no possibility for them to do stand-up. But yeah, stand-up is a way for expression, for just to test yourself, challenge yourself, and it's a great way to. I feel like actually it should be in schools.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a guy. Look, one of my favorite comics is Louis C.K.
Yep.
And I remember him talking about himself doing comedy for like 25 years.
Yeah.
And not like making the big break.
Yep.
And then like all of a sudden he starts gaining popularity, and then within like a matter of years, he's like one of the biggest comics.
Yeah.
I mean, the resilience comedians have is just. I mean, I respect that.
Yeah.
Because it is an art form, right?
It is.
I mean, you're writing based on your creativity and your ideas, and then not only are you just writing, you're having to perform that.
Yeah.
What other profession do you have to write and then also perform?
Yeah.
Because a lot of these actors, they have writers and producers, and then they're on not to like diminish acting. But they have like their role, and then they have writers, they have their role. But in comedy, it's like you have both, and then you have to perform well.
Yeah. And also it has to. I just when you said like because it is an art form, but I saw this interview with Norm Macdonald, and he said that an art form is for if you have an audience of 100 people, if they look at a painting, they would have 100 different perspectives and interpretations of their photo. In comedy, all of 100 has to have the same point of view as you. Like they all have to come to the same conclusion. So it is an art form. He just defines it as it's also a very almost like a mathematical thing, like an engineering thing. Because if you say the joke in one way, they will laugh. If you say it in a somewhat different way, they won't laugh that much. If you say it in a worse way, they just won't laugh at all. So it's kind of it's a lot of comics. They're very logical thinking because they have a point. That's why people laugh, because it ends with a punchline that everybody would laugh at. So it's kind of I guess that you could say the same thing about it if somebody's painting sculpting a sculpture. It's as an artwork, but it's also a very refined thing. Yeah. It's not up to your interpretation. Yeah.
Man, I respect because you mentioned earlier, like if you're in the audience, and I think you described it very accurately. Like you want these people to do well, right? You want to be entertained. For me, at least, there's a huge part of me also when I sat down on your show, for example. You know what's crazy? I'm a huge fan of stand-up, and that's the first stand-up comedy show.
Yeah.
Like I just I watch on TV, but I never actually been to one.
Yep.
But a part of me is extremely I respect what you do, because to get on stage, I mean, I'm a pretty like, outgoing guy, like I'll do the American thing and like talk to anyone, like I don't get shy very often, but the fucking thought of like writing a joke and then having to perform it on stage, dude, like there's nothing, maybe like bungee jumping, but there's nothing else that I can think of now that I go, fuck, that would freak.
Yeah.
So I respect like what you do and what other comics do, like so fucking much. And I mean that like really genuinely. It's kind of a running joke because this is really embarrassing to admit. But I've been writing jokes for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just like, I'm not like, I jot them down.
Yeah.
The same thing like you, I always find myself saying to my wife, my friends, like throughout the day, would it be funny if like, and then I'll just go on for like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And then my wife is laughing and I feel great. And she's like, you should write that down. So I've been writing those down. I'm not going to tell you any of them. But my New Year's resolution for this year, for the upcoming year, was to do an open mic.
Yeah.
And just saying that right now freaks me out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts? You can be honest. Like,
Yeah.
do you encourage?
Yeah, I would encourage that because just the sense I get from you from this is that you are very you have a good delivery. You're not shy. You're not walking on eggshells. Obviously, after you're doing this podcast, but you just that says so much of it. To just be confident, and if you have written jokes down already, and you have things that your wife appreciates and actually makes her laugh out loud, yeah, you're a long way to go. Yeah.
Okay, that's
encouraging. Yeah. So we have the open mic every Wednesday.
Okay.
At Folken. Yeah.
Are they English or Norwegian?
They're Norwegian, but every audience member would understand you. Yeah. So we've had a couple of Norwegian comics. I mean about 2 or 3. They had fully Norwegian, but they started doing English stand-up.
Oh, they started.
Yeah, because that's kind of a way to masquerade themselves. It's kind of a way to not put themselves all the way out there, so they're more comfortable.
Oh, really? If they speak
in kind of a character. Yeah. But there's no hindrance that it would be in English.
It's crazy because like Norwegians, like statistically and factually, per capita speak better English than anywhere else in the world.
Really?
But I found it that most Norwegians are so self-conscious about their
English. Yeah.
It's like, what the no, you speak great, I mean, the whole point of communication is like, I can understand you. And okay, you have an accent, who fuck cares, like I can understand you. It's communication. But I found a lot of Norwegians like, oh, I don't want to talk, unless they have a couple of beers, of course.
Always the alcohol.
Alcohol helps. There was like, oh, my English is so bad. I'm like, dude, it's fucking great. Like I'm learning Norwegian, but it takes some time.
Yep.
But if I could speak as much Norwegian as they speak English, I mean, I would feel pretty good about it. So, does the comedy, like if you're performing in Norwegian versus English, is that a hard shift for you?
Mostly it's simultaneous translation, so it's just in my head. I do have a lot of jokes in Norwegian that plays on words. Those are out, obviously, right?
It wouldn't make sense in English.
Yeah, of course. So it's a big chunk of the material there, but otherwise, if you have a good point and the story is funny, the Norwegian language and English language is similar enough in the way it's built up that it's not it works. Yeah.
Because you hear comedy, like big time comics going to like Australia and to Asia, and still doing well,
Yeah, sure.
So you would think that like there are some cultural nuances, where I don't know if you're performing in like Beijing, they wouldn't understand like some jokes, but that's I think with the advent of like the internet, Netflix, everyone's like like you said, you're 8 years old in Norway, like fucking watching Eddie Murphy. So like that stuff does translate.
Yeah, and now like you say, because of the world has become so small now because everybody knows what's happening and everybody. So I've heard interviews with American comedians, like HBO specials comedian, right? So big shots that they come to Norway or Sweden and Denmark, and they're so surprised that dude, they understood everything. I talked about Trump, and I talked about whatever American politics, and they would understand it. And it's like, yeah, so it has opened up a whole market for them as well. So yeah, but especially if you go to like Russia or China, I don't know if they, do you know what I mean? Like you say, I don't know if would it be the same? I'm asking you.
I don't know. And it's funny you mentioned Russia. I mean, the Russians that I knew or know of, not the most like humorous people. I mean, that's of course a generalized.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I think Russia, maybe some parts of China will be a little bit rough.
I don't know, but I have a friend of mine who's doing stand-up in Bergen. He's from China, and he did a set in China, and it was real. They had to read his script.
Oh,
He couldn't just go on up
Yeah,
and do it. That was interesting.
How did he do in
I think
Bergen?
he did as well.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was just interesting how So it's kind of a different level of factors playing in on the humor part.
Is relatability a part of, or a big part of like your writing and your performance? Because like there's a lot of who am I thinking about? There's some comedians out there that that are, you know, they play on like the fact that they're like Asian, or they play the fact that they're Jewish, or you know, and that's like their character. You know, is that a part of what you do, or are you just a little bit more well-rounded? Are you a little bit more?
Yeah, because I'm not really. I'm thinking about this in terms of my stand-up persona, because I'm not anything, right? I'm not religious of any sort. Okay, so then you can say I'm an atheist, but I don't really push that card either. But yeah, the first thing you learn doing stand-up is like, what's your hook? Like, what's your thing? And that's good to start on, just because you know, it's not dangerous to talk about because you're talking about yourself. And it gives you a start in terms of, you know, getting some laughs, starting a set. But yeah, a lot of people, you know, if they're big, if they're fat, they don't talk about
the
that.
fat one,
yeah. Or like you say, if they're if they're in Norway from a different country, they wouldn't talk about that and their heritage, like if they were to be Jewish or whatever. That's very common. And also I feel like some female comics will talk about the experience of being a woman. But yeah, not all female comics do that. But it's just like, what's your hook? Yeah,
your hook. If I ever see like a fat comedian and they don't talk about how fat they are, I get disappointed.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
You know, so
don't he know he's fat?
yeah, you know. But they're still funny.
Yeah, of course.
They're still funny,
of course.
You know.
Yeah.
The thing that again, I'm kind of a comedy snob. You know, the thing that I am kind of over though is like female comics talking about their pussy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's kind of like the default. You know, like, let's talk about my vagina. You know?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that all female comedians don't do well with it. You know, I mean, there are people that kill it.
Yeah.
But it just seems a little like a fallback. You know. Again, if you're a female comic out there, you know, don't rewrite your bit because of this, because I'm a fucking idiot. You know.
No, but again though, like a lot of male comics, they do have a lot of dick jokes, which is more acceptable, and that's a weird thing. Why is that? But again, it's not like all male comics talk about their dicks either. But it's an interesting kind of a gender gap there. I think it's just easier to talk about have dick jokes than a pussy joke. I don't know.
The pussy equivalent for female with male comics for me is jacking off.
Oh yeah,
you know, like if you could screenshot like all the comedians who had a jack off joke and they're doing like this on stage, you know, like it'd be a lot. You know,
I know, that's what I'm saying. That it's just the most basic thing, and that's often funny. When I say basic, I don't mean bad. I just mean that's the everything. Everybody has either one or the other.
yeah. I remember when I was like younger, again being a fan of comedy and like comedic movies. I would like, it would be like kind of like highly censored, but I feel like nowadays with podcasts and like YouTube, dude, there's no fucking things left on. Like,
no,
everything's on the table.
Yeah,
you know? And the things that like, I mean, I don't know about you, but like how old are you now?
I'm 36.
36. I'm 40. So we're like around. So we grew up in the same generation. I would never talk about jacking off with my friends.
No,
you know, it's like, don't, dude, what are you doing? I'm not, you know, it's a coffee table conversation.
Yeah.
And I think not to blame or credit stand up, but I think the comedy scene has like kind of paved the road.
Yep.
Because I saw it, Eddie Murphy or whoever said it, you know, so it's okay for us to say.
Yeah, and also sitcoms. I saw this actually on a podcast talking about Friends. That in the later years, in the season 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, it would just be that this was primetime NBC, 8 o'clock on a Thursday. It would every fifth joke is a dick joke. Basically, they're not saying the word dick, but it's kind of
a sexual innuendo.
Yeah, all the time, right? Which I don't mind that, but I would understand what the podcaster was talking about. That the road has been so paved that even on prime time network
Yeah.
television, it's just what are you gonna do? Because if you don't do that, it's too soft, maybe, or whatever.
They got to bring in that edge.
Yeah. Because otherwise, it's not gonna get eyeballs.
But having said that, if you do a jack off joke,
Yeah.
or if you're a female, do a pussy, and you kill it,
Yeah.
that just means like, I mean, you've taken something that's so ancient,
Yep.
and you still can fucking
Yes.
So that's to their credit.
But in sitcom world, like the contest on Seinfeld, do you know what I mean about that?
Contest, no.
Contest. That was the name of the episode. Larry David wrote it,
okay.
and the contest was if the friends there, Jerry, Elaine, George, and Kramer, if they could, who could go the longest without jerking off,
Okay.
right? That was the whole episode.
Okay.
And they never said obviously jerking off. They never said any of the. They had euphemisms,
They were implying.
and euphemism and innuendo, and that was in 1993, season 4. So it's just so even then, but that won an Emmy, and that's just after that.
That episode?
That Larry David won for best writing.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that episode. And just a fun fact, because I'm nerding on Seinfeld and sitcoms. Larry David would used to have like a whiteboard with every title of an episode, but he never had the contest because executives from NBC would come into his office and say, "Oh, what's that about? What's that title?" And he didn't want to talk about the contest. He just wrote it, and they did it, and just
because he thought that they would can it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I recently, or in the past, I've seen Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yep.
Dude, that thing is funny.
It is great.
Funny.
Yeah.
He's like one of those rare animals where a writer turned like actual performer.
Yeah. But he also did stand up.
In that aspect, yeah. Oh, he's done stand up.
No, he did stand up. He and Jerry did stand up. So yeah, so many people working on SNL and all of that. They're like Bob on the Better Call Saul. He's a stand up.
No kidding.
Yeah,
with the main guy.
Bob Odenkirk, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The lawyer guy.
Yeah.
He did stand up.
He did stand up. Yeah. So stand up has one of the art form that's really the springboard, or what would you call it? It's to so much. Yeah. Like also talking about the Breaking Bad universe. Like Walter White, Bryan Cranston, he did Malcolm in the Middle, like a comic actor.
I remember.
So it's just
he was the dad.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then Breaking Bad comes out. He's a phenomenal actor.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But something happened between Malcolm in the Middle and
he's
Breaking
probably
Bad.
like, oh my god, fuck this show. Fuck Malcolm, fucking boring ass kid.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in the middle.
yeah, exactly. No, he's a great, and we recently started watching Your Honor. He was also on that as well.
Is that a movie?
I think, no, it's an HBO show.
I
think there's only like 1 or 2 seasons. But,
Okay.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
He just has like, I don't know. People like have their characters, but that character is so versatile.
Yeah. And his kind of when he stares into the camera, you can feel he's staring at me. So it's he kind of breaks through the screen.
I have such a profound. I did some acting in the U.S. and I being on set, seeing how hard they work, because before you're like, oh, actors, they get paid millions of dollars, they get all the fame, they get all the whatever, the popularity. But then like when on set, I would see them like how long they worked and the whole crew and the production value. Dude, it was so impressive. So I had a whole newfound like respect for them as well.
Yep.
And I think like it's natural because if you're not a fucking jackass, if you see how hard people work, like you and for 10 years grinding, doing however many shows a week, cannot respect.
Yeah. But that goes for every profession or anybody. Yeah, and that's I think that's the thing. When people watch stand up, this also includes comics. They don't think everybody's working that hard, so they get maybe jealous or bitter about, oh, why does he get that opportunity? And he doesn't even he does a lot. He doesn't show that he does it. So grinding is the whole thing, and people notice that. People respect that. Like you say, you can't not respect it. If you just keep doing a great job and delivering, I don't know about anybody who's really doing that and doesn't get any breaks from it, doesn't get any opportunity from it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time if you work your ass off.
Yeah. And just to quote, not too timely now, but I'm going to quote Bill Cosby.
Oh, no.
no. But
keep it
yeah.
PC.
No, but
This is a family show.
he said this a long time ago that he never see people. Okay, I'm going to start again. Never let people see you work. Just do it. This was in terms of stand-up. Just go on stage, kill it. Of course, there's no worries that people see you work. I'm just saying that his point was that everybody works. Don't worry about people working. Like if you go on stage and kill it, then yeah.
Well, especially now because like the advent of social media, most people tend to post like the best aspect of their lives. Like they go on like a 3-week holiday to Thailand. They're posting all the food photos. It's like this person might have saved for a full year, working 6 days a week overtime to make that happen. And like same thing with a comedian. They might have been writing jokes and performing for 10 years, like yourself, finally having some success, and then whatever. But people are like, oh, he's a class clown turned successful comedian, but that's often not the case.
Yeah, definitely. And many comedians who said this. Whitney Cummings on this Comedy Store documentary. She also said that she had been there for like 8 years, and suddenly she got late night spots, and she got like TV spots, and people were just commenting online saying, "Now where did she come from?" Just overnight. Overnight stand up for like 9 years. Like this is not an overnight sensation. But people don't know. Yeah.
Do you think there's a different expectation in the industry between male and female comics? Because I mean, obviously, it's a male-dominated industry, right?
Yep.
Do you think it's tougher, easier? Do people give a little bit of slack for female comics? Or
I think it's tougher for the most part. For on almost every criteria. There are certain cases of like, what would you call it in English, like quota. Yeah. Maybe getting a woman, a female comic, they might get an opportunity that maybe a male could have had. But that's just that doesn't weigh up for. I genuinely think that a woman has bigger disadvantage and more what would you call it? It's a steeper uphill. Just because I know women who has said that they think men are funnier. Why that is? Do you know what I mean? Not female comics. But I've heard
women in general.
Women in audiences say that. Oh, I like better when I like the male comics better. And it's like I think I don't know if this is controversial to say, but I just think that is because TV in and of itself and just public speaking and all the politicians, and it's almost like people are used to it's a male that goes on stage and takes control, kind of. When a female goes up on stage and gonna take the room, it's like it's almost like an off balance thing, which it shouldn't be. I just think that in our brains we've just grown up to. It's almost like I don't know how to describe it, but I think they get an unfair steep hill. Do you know what I mean about that?
So if you're a female comic, you kind of have, like in golf terms, like kind of a handicap, starting off.
I feel like that. I'm not saying that's correct, but I just think that it's almost like we're not kind of used to it, or it's and that's I think that will change, but not in this generation. So the current female comics, they have this hindrance. Yeah.
Because there's kind of like the hanging with the boys type of dynamic, right?
I know.
mean, you'll have a group of comedians, and 9 out of 10 of them will be males, and then you have one female comic. And, so.
Yeah, and often then that female comic might have like a masculine sensibility of thinking of things. They might be the material is kind of almost the same in terms of what they talk about, and so it's kind of like I think for the next 10 years and longer, it will balance itself out, or just in the start of stand up in Norway, and it's still so male dominated.
It would be cool to see, because like I said, like this is gonna fucking sound like I'm dogging on female comics, but I mean there's like an inherent challenge, like you said. It would be really nice to, like, a refreshing thing as a fan of comedy to have a female comic out there that like stays like feminine, like like embraces that,
Yep.
and then also is like really a good performer.
Yeah.
Because again, I'm a snob when it comes to stand up, but a lot of these female comics tend to like, oh, fuck me in the pussy, like they fuck me in the ass, it's like,
Yep.
oh, I'm like whatever, you get what I'm saying. And it's funny, but I'll be the first to admit, like when my wife and I are scrolling through Netflix and we want to watch it, like I don't watch female comics.
That's a lot of
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just nothing against them, but like I said, I just there seems to just be more male comics that resonate that I find.
Yeah, but also just much more. If you have a pool of 100 male comics and 7 female comics, so if 10% of them are killing it, so you have 10 male comics killing it, and you don't even have one woman killing it because there's only 7 of them.
Just the sheer numbers.
Yeah, you just have a 0.7 female comedians killing it. It's just sheer numbers. So that's what I mean. It's gonna balance itself out. There will be much more female comedians.
Yeah.
Our last course in September now was only 7 people there, but all women. Yeah, but that's very unusual though. They also, when they came into the course, I was like, whoa, it's really only women? Yeah. So and that also has to do with it's not it's much more normal, or for lack of a better word, it's much more of what would you call it? Obsequious? No, that was not the right word. What would you call it? It's much more common.
It's more common.
Yeah.
It's trending.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about this. So is it like a you said a course? Is it like a program that people that are interested in comedy can go and learn? And
yes, twice a year, the first Monday of September and the first Monday of March. We do it's a 3-hour kind of like it's the theoretical part is it's a PowerPoint 3-hour, but that shows tips, and it shows what not to do, and it shows different ways of telling a punchline, different ways of telling a story, different ways jokes are built up, just a very theoretical sense to it. And then we do the part 2 of the course is we do a practical writing session, and then the final they get on stage. So for the next course is March 3rd, and then we have set off April 9th to go on stage. So
in front of a live audience?
In front of, whatever we sell tickets, but in front of like on a show, like we have every Wednesday. So April 9th is a Wednesday, so we just set that Wednesday off for the people who went to the course.
So it's a crash course, stand-up.
Yes.
Stand-up 101. They kind of get the fundamentals.
Yeah.
The application, and then they have to go perform.
Because we don't want to sell. Because we also say that this is not a all set solution. Like if you're not funny, if you don't have any clue, you can't just come to the course and also I'm a comic, right? So we're not trying to sell a product that doesn't exist. But if you are interested, and if you have some sensibilities to humor and jokes, it's a 3-hour crash course of just here's a lot of information that you could use. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna put the accountability thing publicly here.
Yeah.
I'd like to sign up.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Again,
awesome.
don't.
Yeah.
I'm not setting any expectations, just so we're not fucking mistaken here. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm not. But I am very curious.
Yep.
It's a big part of the reason why I have this podcast, and and also too, I found it that we do the most growing when we're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So like for me, the little thing is like cold plunge. Like I cold plunge every day.
What's that?
Cold plunge. Where?
Cold. Oh yeah.
Where cold, and then because it's freezing now.
Of course.
So I don't need to cool the water.
Yeah.
It's frozen in the morning. I have to crack the ice and then jump in.
So it's like in this tub.
Yeah, it's just like an inflatable tub.
Yeah. Wow.
I fill it up, and then in the mornings, I usually do in the mornings because, dude, the last thing you want to do when you wake up, when you're nice and warm in your bed, is to jump in ice water.
Yeah.
But part of the reason, that's the benefit, right?
Yeah.
I know inflammation is a big thing that causes ailments. So it's part health reasons. It's more discipline too. Because I like to start the day off with doing something I don't want to do, and then it's like, okay, now I feel like I've earned the breakfast.
Yes.
I've earned it. I don't know how we got off on that tangent, but just I respect, and I'm a huge fan of comedy, and I've written some jokes that probably not so funny. But but to
Hey.
do a 3-hour course to learn the fundamental, I mean, and what could I lose out on? You know, like
Yeah.
I'll learn, I'll step on stage, I'll bomb, whatever, and then I'll be on my merry way.
But then you've
you
done
know?
stand-up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you have I just sense right away that you have the right mindset to it. You're not delusional, obviously. No.
Maybe-
But like you say, oh, it maybe not gonna work. You have the normal.
the reservation jet.
Yes, some people are delusional and they think they're and that's kind of it's not survivable in the long term.
That's where you're
Um,
bombing day after day, and then you've been in it for 15 years.
Yes,
There's
yes,
a little bit
and
of
when you
that.
start, it's like this is easy. Like, I'm just gonna up and talk about myself. People would love that, wouldn't they? They love it if
That's a
it's funny.
narcissist,
Yeah, well, narcissist, delusional. It's not the same thing, but it's a Venn diagram there.
Yeah.
yeah.
Do a lot of like you don't need to name names, but do a lot of like your comedian friends share like a particular characteristic? You know, could you be like, oh, okay, most of them are X, Y, and like, is there like a character trait? Because I know, obviously, you know, this may sound like a dumb question, but obviously, everyone's got their own personalities and their characters and their hooks. But is there like a trait that you would say, okay, if you're like a successful comic or if you're funny on stage
Yeah.
and you're killing it, most of the guys share or girls share this type.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but if you're neurotic, that helps usually because then you notice all those social small situations. If you're like if your handshake lasts too long, that's funny. Other people don't think about it, but the neurotic comic will think about that. A lot of the funniest one, they have ADHD. That's and that's not a personality trait. You know what I mean? But there's just kind of a because you know they think fast. They're yeah, and a lot of people I feel like a lot of people are dyslexic. What my theory on why that helps is that you just see the world how you perceive it. You're not actually reading it and following it, and you just take information as
There's no template.
as you hear it,
Yeah.
right? So there's a couple of what some people will call deficiencies. Is in stand-up is like, whoa, it's good, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm not saying that. But if you're neurotic and perfectionist, and you can take a beating in not a physical beating, obviously, but if you do bomb, let's go back up there.
The psychological.
Yeah, the psychological beating. Yeah.
I gotta say, man, I'm I'm a little bit. I feel better.
Yeah.
I do check off a lot of those, unfortunately or fortunately. I mean, there's some times where I just like I said, not to like talk about myself in this, but there's some times where I'm like, I talk to my, I go, say pussy, you know, and it's just like, no, definitely did not. I was like, oh, okay, because I thought he said pussy. Wouldn't it be funny if he did say pussy?
Yeah.
You know, or like, you know, I'll see like some kids play. I have 2 kids. I love kids.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking like, there's some ice. I'm like, it'd be fucking funny if like I kicked that kid right now and he started.
Exactly, but that's a comedian.
I would never ever in a million years kick a kid, you know.
But it's funny to think about.
Funny, you know? And then my wife has a good enough humor to where I can tell her, and then she won't think that I'm a complete psychopath.
Yeah.
But, no, it's fun. I think, like I said, I think that part of it, like you said, the like picking up on those small things, like oh, the handshake's a little too long, you know, a little gay, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
That's like it's either you're thinking or you're not, you know.
Exactly.
I think 9 out of 10 people fucking okay, it's a handshake, whatever.
Yeah.
But like I think if you have that, you know.
Yeah, that mindset, and they might think that the handshake is too long, but they're not thinking it. It's not a funny thing. Like a comedian's mind would think that, oh, that's kind of funny. That's kind of weird. Yeah.
That's so funny. It's an art form that never stops.
Yeah.
You know, which is crazy. Because if you're a painter, you go into the studio, you prepare, you paint, and then you're kind of done. Unless you're thinking about what you're gonna do next.
Yeah.
As far as your artwork. But man, I feel so privileged, you know, honestly, because literally I just went to your show. I was super impressed. I mean, dude, you're a fucking great host.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is it different just doing stand-up versus hosting?
Somewhat. When you do host, when you're the MC, you still do some material, so you still kind of do stand up, but you have to interact with the audience some more, and then there's it's in some sense it could actually also be easier because it's all depends on what the audience are saying, and then you play on that. So it's kind of you don't really have to prepare anything because you go up there and talk with them. But that takes a lot of years for me, at least, to kind of perfect and not. Obviously, I also have many nights where I have areas before that comic I didn't really did a good job with the audience, but I
Yeah.
feel like every time I feel like I can create something out of what the audience tells me.
Well, let me tell you this, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this shit because you're sitting in front of me. There were some comics who did very well.
Yep.
There were a few, perhaps not so much that night. But I was, and again, if I'm thinking, I'm sure a lot of the audience did as well. I looked forward to you coming back,
Oh, nice.
right?
Yeah,
which is great. I mean,
Yeah,
I hope you,
Of
I
course.
hope that feedback, makes you feel better. But
Yes.
I think that's a good sign of a good comic. Like you're looking forward to. Oh, I can't wait till the show that gets back. This
Yep.
fucking comedian bombed. Like
Yeah.
oh, let's get over that. And then
Yeah.
let's have our guy come back.
Yeah.
So I think you're a phenomenal host. I mean, but I guess you don't start off hosting, right? I mean, you start stand up, and
Yes.
then you kind of. Did someone ask you, hey, could you host tonight's show or
Yes.
something? Okay.
Yes. So that's different between in also terms of American comic or stand up, because there and also in England, because I've seen some interviews about this, like talked about Kill Tony. No, now I'm thinking about who's working with Dave Chappelle, Neil Brennan. He talked about how in the beginning he only got to host.
Oh, he started off as a host.
Yeah, because in America on some clubs the host is just okay, welcome. This is gonna be a great night. Who are you dating, whatever. But there's no expectation, so there's no. And then let's bring on Bill Burr, and then he's gonna kill it. And then the host is back, and did everybody have a great time? And I hope everybody. Now we're gonna take a break. It's just very formal, just very informative, with some jokes. But then when you get really good, you'll get a spot. You'll get like 15 minutes for yourself. But in Norway, it's often that the host has to work up to become the host, because to talk to the audience, there's an expectation that's also have to be funny, not just a palate cleanser.
Yeah, because it kind of sets like the expectation, right? I mean, if the host sucks, you're like, oh god, this is gonna be a long night.
Yeah.
But if the host is good, like you are, you're looking whether the comedian coming up is good or not. It's like we are looking forward to you coming back.
Yeah. There's all the
Yeah, and it's not. And I say the host, I don't know if that's the right term, because the way you described it, it's like grab a drink, sit down. If you have any questions, there's front counter, blah blah.
Yeah.
That's like just proctoring.
Yeah.
But you're like a comedian host, where you're like you have like a quick set in between.
That's the kind of Norwegian model, which I think maybe it's not like that in America now. I've just heard, like I say, from the interviews from American comics, but the goal is to not become a host anymore and to get the spot. Yeah. So, but like I say, like you say, it's more of a comedian host. Yeah. And I really love that role myself. Yeah.
I think that gives like at least comedy fans in Norway a little bit of relief, because I like that format, because there's some stability in knowing that okay, the guy like running this is funny as shit.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're gonna have some good comics and some bad. We at least know that our guy is funny,
Yeah.
So no, I like the format. I don't know that. I don't know how it's done in the U.S., but I would imagine the same. I mean, pretty similar, if not.
I think so. Yeah.
Have you ever had aspirations of going to America and going to a big club and?
Yeah, but not aspirations to actually. It would be cool to like do a stand-up set there, but I don't have any aspirations to move there.
No, not to move, but I'm saying to go there. And maybe like hit 3 or 4 states, maybe
that would be awesome.
Maybe a month of just performing.
A couple of years ago, I went to England and I did 4 days. So I did 4 shows, pretty good. But then no, okay. So, but I didn't get. There's hard to kind of get payment because they don't know who I am, right?
Yeah.
So I just my way to reach out to them was just, hey, is it possible to get like 10 minutes? I'll do it for free. I've been doing stand-up now at that time for 8 years. I'm experienced. I've done a lot of English, and I sent them videos. And when they hear that, this guy's just gonna go up there and do it for free.
Bring him in.
Bring him in. Yeah. So I got the spots, but it's hard to kind of, hey, is it possible to actually get money from you for this? And it's like, we have so many other comedians that would. So my point there is that if you were to move to England, for instance, that a couple of Norwegian comics have done. Then you kind of start at the bottom because all the English comics, we're here. Well, what are you doing here? Like
the new guy.
Yeah. So it's a dynamic there in and of itself. Yeah.
Wow. So what is next for Kjetil? Like, are you just going to continue? I mean, because again, I know, and I ask that question all due respect, because a lot of professions is like people say kind of benchmarks.
Yep.
You know, do you have benchmarks for your career
Sure.
moving forward, or you're like, I'm just going to grind and see where this goes?
For the most part, grinding, but for now, I'm focusing on the 10th anniversary show, which I'll do, like I said, in Bryne in January 31st, and in Sandnes at Sydvest on February 22nd. And then it's Egersund, Haugesund, and then I'm going to do in Stavanger and maybe Bergen. So I'm just focusing. So I'm writing a whole new show about how it is to be a comic for 10 years.
Okay.
How I started, how it's...
So it's going to be a whole new bit for you.
A whole new hour.
Set,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of... and that's going to be from the first show in January and the last show in May. So for the next 5 months, I'm just going to focus on that. Yeah.
Wow. Now, I did have more of a technical question for you because I'm curious.
Yeah.
How do you fucking go? Because there are some comics, it's their bit, right? It's like they go, oh, and they look down, they say the punchline, and then the next joke, and then the next joke. They look down at their notes. So that's kind of a part of the thing.
Yep.
I feel like that's the tactic that I would use because I would forget. But how would you do like an hour? I mean, 15 minutes makes sense. But how would you do an hour set and kind of know practice and
you could have some bigger chunks. You could have for an hour, you could have 6 bullet points for 10 minutes each. Not to have. I still use the set list because I've 2 times I've been doing. Well, I have 2 1-hour shows that I've done. And you could also kind of cheat. You could just put your set list on the floor. The audience won't see that, and you just look down on the floor, right? So because it's hard to remember an hour, and my philosophy about it is, if that's the right word, is that it's better for a comic to look at his or her notes and deliver a great show, and don't have notes and forget, and because timing is so important, right? So I've never seen a comic that it was kind of not that good, but he didn't look at his notes once. I don't see that as a positive, right? But you do have to remember a lot, because if you do an hour show and you have 6, 7, or 8 bullet points, you still have to remember the whole chunk that revolves around that one bullet point. So there's a lot of
your setups, your punchlines.
Yes,
you gotta still know all that.
Yes, and you all the so you say the punch, and then you have a 3-second silence before you say the tagline. So there's a lot of it's a performance.
The cadence as well is very important.
Cadence. Yeah, because I remember this one comedian saying that if you say a joke, right, and just before the punchline, you get something in your throat, so you kind of go do like this, and then you say the punchline, no one will laugh.
Dead.
So the audience have heard the whole joke, they're in on the idea, and they heard the punchline. So just that scratch, is that right? So that's what I'm saying.
You're right.
The delivery is, if not 98, 99%, obviously the content is important, but if you fuck up the delivery, then, we heard all the content, didn't laugh.
I mean, because you can have one guy say, what the fuck are you doing? Or you can have some guy saying, what the fuck are you doing?
Exactly.
It's like, holy shit. It's like 2 completely different messages.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Man, I respect the hell out of you, especially because I do have an acting background. I have trouble memorizing a fucking scene, so for you and your fellow, comics to do full sets an hour long, man, I wish you all the best. You have my full support.
Oh, thank you.
How can people find you? And I know you have a couple of shows coming up.
Yes.
So how can people find you? How can they connect? How can they come watch you?
Go Facebook and Instagram. Me personally, it's Melkevik Stand Up.
Okay.
But the club is Stand Up Stavanger. So we're all on social media, and our website is standupstavanger.com. The whole program almost for 2025 is out. So if you live in Stavanger, Sandnes, or Bryne, or Egersund, there's shows coming up.
Fantastic. Hey, listen, if you're listening out there, and if you've never been to a comedy show, or you've been reluctant or whatever reason, get your ass to one of these shows. Hopefully it has Kjetil in it, either hosting or performing. You will not be disappointed. I myself, again, as I mentioned before, had very little expectations coming to a stand-up show in Stavanger. on a cold fucking night. But I was very, very impressed. And I think you guys would have a wonderful time as well. So show them your support. And again, what's your on social media? What's your tagline?
At Melkevik Stand Up.
At Melkevik Stand Up. So hey, I really appreciate the hell out of you, man.
Hey,
thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for
maybe
coming.
We'll have you back, and you can tell me about your progress. And like I said, I'm not fully committed to the course, but I'm 90% sure that I'll be there.
I'm not going to hold you accountable for it.
Yeah, and hopefully it won't be me and like 9 other female comics talking about their pussy. Then I'll just start jacking off. No, but yeah, and I appreciate the hell out of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, guys, that's a wrap. Thank you.